growing in these times, in these circumstances, helped me, I think, and gave me a lot of insight to the needs of the local body at that time in order to help grow the local body. What are the resources that are needed? What would be effective for the new generation? What is really needed? And how most effectively to share the gospel with our people.
We're here at the Garden Tomb, where tens of thousands of evangelical Christians come every year, maybe it's more than that, to see this garden, this place where you'll see on the screen, there is a mountain that looks like a skull. There is an empty tomb. Not everybody believes this is the place, but for evangelicals, whether it's the actual place or whether it just feels like the place, it is right next to the old city of Jerusalem, and it's a place that people love to come and just spend time meditating and praying and singing and taking communion and going into an empty tomb, whether it's the one or not. We don't, I won't answer that question here because it's one of raging debate. But the point is where many evangelicals love to celebrate this. So you grew up in this home. You saw that it wasn't popular for your father and family to believe in Yeshua. There was a lot of resistance. There was persecution. I mean, it was not an easy thing, and we don't even have time to get into all of that. But you were a naval officer. You worked for the Intel Corporation. You could have been very successful in business. But you decide, no, I believe the Lord wants me to run the Israeli Bible Society. Why? What's the resurrection story mean to you, and why have you devoted your entire life to making sure that every Israeli has a chance to read the Bible for themselves?
First of all, it is a calling. At a certain age, at a young age, God gave me a dream, and in short, in which I was handed a Bible. Okay, and I didn't understand why. That's the short version of that. Okay. But just let's put it now aside. Now, on top of that, all my life, okay, were in a way destined, if you like, were directed to that, because I grew up as a first generation of Messianic believers in the land. I grew up in the first...
Meaning you were born here,
I was born here,
and you came to faith in Yeshua here.
Israeli. I experienced firsthand what it is to be an Israeli who believes in Jesus. There is no Israeli before us, our generation, that experienced that. A Jewish Israeli that believes in Christ
years, right? Yeah.
For 2,000 years in the first Messianic congregation in Israel. So that's the timing, and that's what God has done. I couldn't do that. I don't decide when I will be born. I was born into a Jewish believing family that came to faith in very special circumstances. After the Holocaust, my mother is Iranian, came to Israel and came to faith.
That's a whole other story.
And it is during my life, like as a youngster and so on, that God is really bringing the people of Israel to the land of Israel, building Israel as a nation here, and building the remnant, okay, of believers in the land. So we are the first, generation of believers after 2,000 years.
And we've gone from about 23 to, some estimates are about 15,000, some say 30,000, but there's two different studies,
right.
But a lot more than ever.
Thousands.
In the land.
When I was in the Navy, I was the only believer. When I was at school, in the entire Navy. When I was at high school, I was the only believer. When I told my teacher that I'm a Messianic Jew, and it took me a lot of courage to do that, to my Bible teacher, she stopped walking, she looked at me and said, "Victor, don't forget how much Jewish blood was shed." So for her, it was like, how can you do that? Yes.
It's not just you believe something different, okay?
No,
that feels like
you cannot do that. You're crossing the lines. Yeah. It's like you're losing your identity and going out, of your people.
The only way you can do that, Victor, is because you really believe that Jesus isn't in the tomb, that he really did rise from the dead. So why? Why do you believe that?
Because all growing up in the first Messianic congregation in Israel and in the believing Jewish family, you always need to base your faith on the Jewish roots, on the biblical Old Testament roots of the faith. Okay. This is something that today's generation lacks very much because they have many more believers, they don't need to prove it. But I always,
you had to know that you know that you know.
Because whenever I said to someone, I'm a Jew that believes in Christ, what? What is that? Are you a Christian or a Jew? There wasn't, no one else like that. People didn't know what is a Messianic Jew. Today, people know much more. but we had all the time to explain it and learn what is called apologetic. But this was like our life, this was our reality. So we grew up on that. We grew up with a father that all the time spoke with everyone and anyone about that. So God prepared me to that. So the only thing was, okay, God, when? God, when? When do you want me to stop everything else and just serve you? So this was the question that, I was kind of asking my life all the time. It was all the time there. And at a certain point I said, hey, God, well, did you forget about me? I mean, you have a calling for me, I know it. And he fulfilled it. I mean, I asked 2 signs, not one. I'm a stubborn Jew. So I asked for 2 signs, and God is so graceful, and he gave 2 signs. I mean, biblical signs. I know that it sounds crazy, and we are on the TV program.
Not to me, and not on TBN.
It's the truth, and I cannot say anything else. Yeah. So it was really all the circumstances of my life that led me to this point, and I never thought in my life, if you ask me, when I was youth or young, I would never thought that I would be sharing the gospel with an Orthodox Jew and so on. I mean, we saw our father and said, okay, that's crazy. And I never thought, I remember that one time speaking to an Orthodox, I'm speaking to him, and at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, God, how did you do that to bring me to do the same things? And now I find myself in this situation. Growing in these times, in these circumstances, helped me, I think, and gave me a lot of insight to the needs of the local body at that time in order to help grow the local body. What are the resources that are needed? What would be effective for the new generation? What is really needed? And how most effectively to share the gospel with our people. So,
So what are some of the tools, what are some of the Bible resources that are available through your ministry?
I'll just give you a few recent examples. One is, of course, a booklet about the Feast of Israel, how all the Feast of Israel, what is their biblical meaning and how they are fulfilled in the Messiah. And, all of us, all Jews, Israelis celebrate the feasts. Right. But they don't know the real meaning, the biblical meaning. I mean, they don't know the Passover is about freedom not only from physical slavery in Egypt, but actually from a spiritual slavery to sin. Right. Okay, the relationship with the waving of the first sheaf of first fruits and Shavuot. Okay,
Pentecost.
And how is Shavuot connected with tabernacles, the end of the collecting of the fruit from the land. Okay, in spiritual matter, it is really the believers that God.
And of course, the Day of Atonement, where without a temple, how do you have atonement? The Bible's pretty clear. You need a perfect lamb, and you need a temple to sacrifice it in.
And the Lamb of Passover, of course.
Yeah, that Jesus is that
it
Passover lamb.
Only He fulfills all of that. So I think that's very meaningful outreach resource. Okay, that's one example. Another one is maybe for other audience, the book of Psalms with the red, with putting in red the prophecies about the Messiah in the Psalms.
So when you're coming through a psalm and it specifically talks about Messiah, it sort of pops out to you because it's in red.
Today I've given birth to you. You are my child. Who is he speaking about? The one whom I have trusted have betrayed me, Psalm 41. And the stone that the builders have rejected have become the cornerstone. There are so many. It is the most quoted book in the New Testament.
The Psalms,
The Psalms. And another thing which we work on recently, do you know that most Israelis do not understand the Masoretic text of the Bible, the Old Testament? Their own Hebrew scriptures, they don't understand.
For many people, I try to describe it as, it's like if you're reading Beowulf or Shakespeare in English, like it can be done, but it's not easy. Most American English speakers don't pick up ancient English and go, well, there it is.
It's much more than that, because it is 2,700 years old language. Sometimes you think that you understand, but you don't, because we use this word in modern Hebrew, but in another meaning. And sometimes you don't understand altogether. So we just now completing a whole translation of the Old Testament into modern Hebrew, not to replace the original, but to give you another resource, another tool by which you can understand the original. So this is just an
example. You have another version which is just annotated with extra detail to help you understand, okay, this is the original language, but what do the Bible scholars have taught us over the years about what does that actually mean, and what's that referring to something else? Anyway, it's exciting what you do, And it's exciting to hear the story that brought you, even though we're hearing the short version. We need like a 9-hour mini-series about your family.
And just allow me, Joel,
Sure.
to use this opportunity and say thank you to the Joshua Fund, who is really partnering with us in so many ways and supporting our ministry and
That's an honor.
allowing us to do so many things. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. You didn't have to say that, but I appreciate that. The Joshua Fund is designed to invest in the local believers so that they can be a blessing like this, but also in terms of humanitarian relief and so forth. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation with Victor Kalisher, head of the Israeli Bible Society, and to be here and walk with him through the Garden Tomb, to walk into this empty tomb and just reflect on the fact that he and I, and now almost 1 million Jewish people worldwide, believe that Jesus is in fact the Messiah, that he died on the cross and he rose again. Again, when I was born in '67, there were fewer than 2,000 Jews in the world who believed this, and now there's about 1 million. When he was born, or his father came to faith in 48, 23. Now there's 20 to 30,000 here in Israel. Yeah, there's a long way to go, but so much progress has been made. It's because we're looking at the text seriously. We're looking at the Bible, and we're saying, I know there's a lot of history that would tell me don't do it. There's a lot of our culture that says don't go there, don't believe in Jesus. But when we look at the actual Hebrew Bible, the prophecies, and we match it against the life of Jesus, we're like, it's pretty clear. And it's Moses himself who said in Deuteronomy 18, I believe, when the Messiah comes, if you don't believe in him, if you don't follow him, if you don't obey him, you're going to be cut off from your people. So even Moses was laying down a warning then. When the Messiah does come, take it seriously, embrace him, don't reject him, because there are serious consequences.